I'm switching my keyboard over from an Ergodox, an 80 key Ergodox. It's got the extra keys here, you might notice. And I'm trying out a Dactyl keyboard made by O Keycaps, because there is no way I would wire a Dactyl myself by hand, not having soldered much before. Maybe a difference with this review to other reviews is that I've got a key map. They're blanks, but I've got a key map that I'm happy with, and I've even though the Dactyl doesn't include these two columns, I've disabled them in my own key map here to double check that I can type comfortably, and I'm interested to try out the Dactyl because of the sort of the more ergonomic concave shape. Alright, so since I just got it, I thought I may as well do an unboxing. I do not know what to expect. Now you'll see how this goes. So O Keycaps are quite new, started quite recently, and trying to put a big gash in my monitor. And they make them by hand, these keyboards, so they're pretty. I think they're a pretty small operation, and it does take a while to get them. I would recommend, if you do get one of these, to get the key caps with the keyboard. I bought them separately, and it ended up costing a bit. I've got SA keycaps, and they're all row 3, because you shouldn't need the change in tilt based on the concave shape of the keyboard. Okay, so this is 3D printed. I don't think I've bought anything 3D printed before, even though I've touched or, held things. Okay, looks quite nice. It's got I think unlike some of the other Dactyls, it's got a space for a wrist rest, and it looks pretty well made. It feels quite solid. It uses clicky blue, what would you say, switches. So I'll just get everything out. Don't really have a place to put it. It's O Keycaps, not sponsored or anything by them, by the way. That'll go. Obviously, that goes there. I'll have to unwrap it. And there's the mirror, the other version. Yeah, there's a little bit of dodginess here, although I can't say it matters since it's going to be under a wrist rest. Yeah, a little bit flaking coming off here. I'm not too fussed. It's mostly quite nice, the printing, and it feels quite heavy. But yeah, a little bit rough. I don't know. I'm not too fussed about the looks of it, as long as it works well. And I think that's it. All right, so that's the Dactyl keyboard here, and I'll just cut here and I'll put all the keycaps on. Alright, so I've been using the Dactyl for about a day. So just my first impressions were that it was a bigger change than I expected, because I thought having the same key map on the Ergodox, just going to have one half here, but the Ergodox and moving to this I thought would be like not a very big change, but it's actually a little bit of relearning, mainly because the subtle changes in placement of keys, the muscle memory to press the keys needs to be relearnt a little, though I mean it's not too bad. And overall it doesn't feel quite as relaxed as I thought it would, as in I thought my hand would feel sort of very relaxed reaching for the keys. Probably it's just a matter of getting used to it, but some of the keys are still a little bit of a stretch. These corner ones, for example, and I'm using the modifier keys, Control, OS key, is it Alt, Shift, and pressing these is a little bit tricky. So overall it's a bit of a bigger change than I expected. Made a list of a few things just on the change between the Ergodox and the Dactyl. This row is much easier to press, so I even sometimes accidentally press this bottom row of keys rather than the alpha keys here, because they're much closer. However, it does mean it's a little bit harder to press with your thumb. I was used to pressing these keys with my thumb and little finger here. It's a little bit more awkward. Yeah, so you can, like this, very easy, but not quite like this with your thumbs. So maybe that's just a matter of getting used to using my fingers for this, which seems quite convenient, but it's just what you get used to. What else? You can't quite as easily use the wrong finger to access the keys under your if you're typing here, you can sort of easily, even though it's ortholinear and it discourages you from accessing, from moving across, with this you really notice when you try and say use this finger to press this key, because there's different heights, so you actually your fingers kind of hit the other keys, the other columns, the sides of the keys, because they are quite different in height. So if you're used to, it's probably a good thing actually, but if you're used to pressing, sort of moving your fingers around like this, and you're used to doing it, you kind of get nudged not to. So it's probably good, but yeah, it does trip you up a little bit. And compared to the Ergodox, the thumb cluster is more of a comfortable fit. Depends on the hand size, I suppose, but it's a little bit of a reach to get these keys, even though it's not too bad. I just found you sort of stretch out a little bit, whereas here your thumb hovers over the thumb cluster in a much nicer way. So yeah, after using it for a day, I'm reasonably proficient, and I'm not too worried about continuing to use it. But yeah, a little bit of relearning. Overall, I think it'll be fine, but I'll record another video in a week and check back and see how it's gone, because I think it's worth doing 2 videos on this, just to give the sort of the final conclusion as well. Alright, I've been using this for 3 weeks approximately. Took me about 2 weeks to get really comfortable with it. As you can see, I've got some different keycaps from the last video. I thought I wouldn't need to have angled keycaps, and while I don't especially, I find it kind of nice to have these SA row 1s at the top, which are a bit higher. Yeah, and I've been using it and it's been working out quite well. So I'll just continue on from, I think, things I was saying last time. Probably the main thing that I ran into the problem is the bottom row, mixing up the bottom row and the second bottom row. For some reason with the Ergodox it's not really a problem, but these, as you can see, they're a bit further pushed in, and since they're not quite as much of a grid, I just found it easier to mix up. So what I ended up doing is putting the row 1, that means the ones that have a lot of height at the front, they're quite angled. I put these ones on the bottom row, so I just don't mix them up. I can feel a little bit of a ridge. It's not too bad. It's 2 millimeters maybe difference. And then I put just the SA row 1s at the top and here as well. And I find it quite nice. Really works quite well. I've checked out some other videos on YouTube, and people they go crazy about like the sound and the switches and all this stuff, and I'm not that fussed, but I'm quite happy with it. I'm not going to do lots of typing, but just basic things that I would do for development. Just this kind of thing. It seems to work quite well. I like the clicky switches. I didn't have clicky switches on the Ergodox, and I did miss them. So I did try the Ergodox again just an hour ago or so, just to see what it was like. And it was like basically just as hard going back to the Ergodox as it was going to this. I did notice a little bit of straining because I do use modify keys here. Some people would not do that. You know, some people use modify keys on their thumbs, but I use Control-Alt-Shift in the corner. I noticed a bit of straining of the ErgoDox, and with this, it was less so. Yeah, so generally positive. Probably the only negatives I would have is pressing these keys with your thumb really doesn't work well. Now, you could argue that you shouldn't be doing that. You should be using these fingers. But for example, for a numpad, I use modify key to use these keys as a numpad, and you still want to be able to press often 0 with your thumb here. Now, with the high SA keycaps, it works. I can press just, but with the DSA or the shorter keys, this ridge here gets in the way and you can't really press it. So that was a bit of a downside, but I got around it just with the keycaps, so it's not so much of a problem. But yeah, it's a little inconvenient still. And yeah, so that sort of worked around that. Yeah, and going back to the ErgoDox, it just felt awkward and I wasn't really all that efficient. So I could go back, I'm sure, but yeah, I wouldn't probably be able to use both at once very efficiently. Okay, what else? So I'll just mention some of the pros and cons. Starting off with the cons. As I said, the bottom row being hard to access. Fewer keys was a bit of a con. The ErgoDox has 3 extra keys here, and on my one I actually have 80 keys, but that's beside the point. There's still a few less keys. I had to really compress my key map down to all the keys that I use a lot. And it's okay, it just works, but I can only just fit my key map, and there's a few key shortcuts that are still a tiny bit awkward compared to the ErgoDox. So it's a bit of a downside. The other downsides, I've sort of categorized them differently because they're not downsides of the actual keyboard, it's more just the issues surrounding it, which is buying it is quite difficult, you have to wait for it. I think I mentioned that before. And another thing that I didn't mention is they're less portable. If you wanted to put these in your bag or have them in a box or something, like a carry bag or something, it would be less portable. For some people that may not matter, but that's just something to keep in mind. I was happy to put my ErgoDox in a carry case, and I had it with my laptop. I could travel on the train and stuff. It was no problem. All right. Yeah, and for the pros, very comfortable shape and angle. Just sitting your hands there feels really nice. Going back to the ErgoDox felt very flat. So I quite like that. The wrist rests are awesome. It shouldn't have been as big a advantage as I'm making it out to be, but for all the ErgoDox that I see, very few of them have like nice built-in wrist rests, and the ones that I used, I had a wrist rest that was separate and it would always shuffle around the desk, and I even had to like try and fix it with a piece of cardboard and it would still like move around sometimes. It was really clunky. Sounds silly, but really nice having good wrist rests that always stay in the same place with relation to the keyboard, so you're not sort of finding your way around whenever you use it. Maybe that's just me, but I found that to be a really big advantage, and just it surprises me having to say it, but it just from the experience of using it, it's really nice. I think that's about all. Yeah, just comfortable. It's it works well. It's nice and ergonomic. Yeah, I shouldn't probably end on the wrist rest because there's a lot more to say to it than that. But yeah, it's very similar to the ErgoDox. So if you've used the ErgoDox, it's nice and configurable, and you can have whatever keycaps you like and all that stuff. So yeah, the cherry blue, quite nice, and the keycaps are nice and all that, and I recommend it. For people who have an ErgoDox and they're not sure if they want to switch, I would say if you're interested, I was quite happy with it, but I was also fairly happy with the ErgoDox. And if there's any reservations, or you're not sure if you'll mind having fewer keys, or if you're not sure about it, then if you're happy with the ErgoDox, they're both really good keyboards. So yeah, I think that's it.